Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're teasing apart the really fascinating intersection of neurohormonal biology and those little daily behaviors that quietly control our weight. If you've ever wondered why some people just seem to effortlessly maintain their weight while others constantly struggle, you are absolutely in the right place. We're going to look right past the fads and dive straight into the hard science of what's actually happening inside your body and how your daily environment interacts with the whole shebang. I want to kick things off with this incredibly empowering quote from Thomas Edison. If we all did the things we are capable of, we would astound ourselves. I just love this because it literally perfectly frames what we're talking about today. You see, we've got to stop viewing weight management as just sheer genetic luck or some impossible battle, and start seeing it as a biological capability. It's something every single one of us can tap into once we actually understand how our internal machinery works. Okay, let's dive right into this. Here is our roadmap for today. We'll start by breaking down the naturally thin myth, then move into the actual biology of our hunger hormones. From there, we'll explore how external cues hijack those hormones, look at the power of fidgeting, which is a super surprising habit, by the way, and finally wrap up with a structured plan on relearning how to eat. So, starting off with Section 1, the naturally thin myth. We all have that one friend, right? You know the one, they seem to eat literally whatever they want, they never meticulously count calories, and yet they stay effortlessly slim year after year. Man, it can be incredibly frustrating when you're working so hard just to move the scale a single pound. But here's the thing. It's not just genetics and sheer luck keeping them slim. That whole myth that thinness is purely a genetic lottery, it simply isn't true. Now, while genetics definitely play a role, these quote-unquote naturally thin individuals actually adopt very specific, often completely subconscious, daily habits and physiological responses that keep their bodies in balance. They're essentially working in perfect harmony with their biology. Which brings us to Section 2, the hunger hormones explained. To understand what they're doing right, we first have to understand the biology they're working with. So let's take a look inside the body at the hard science of what really drives our appetite. It's like a delicate dance happening between your gut, your fat cells, and your brain. And we have two main players in this dance, ghrelin and leptin. Think of ghrelin as your hunger engine. It's a peptide produced right down in your gut. When your stomach is empty, ghrelin levels rise. They travel up to your brain to stimulate the lateral hypothalamus, literally shouting, "Hey, we need fuel." Then, on the flip side, we have leptin. This is your satiety brake. Leptin is produced in your adipose or fat tissue. It travels to a totally different part of the brain, the arcuate nucleus, and it signals, okay, we have enough energy stored up, you can stop eating now. And this brilliantly illustrates the concept of homeostasis. Your hypothalamus acts as the body's central integrator, perfectly balancing that hunger engine and the satiety brake. In a perfectly healthy response, leptin tells the brain to inhibit food intake, and you just naturally stop eating. But here's where things go wrong. It's a condition called leptin resistance. See, if you're constantly over-consuming, your fat cells pump out so much leptin that your brain essentially goes deaf to the signal. The brake is literally broken. Your brain actually thinks you're starving, even when you have plenty of stored energy. Crazy, right? Let's move to Section 3, internal versus external cues. Because the big question is, why does that leptin resistance happen in the first place? How does our brilliant internal hormonal system get so thrown off track? Well, the answer is our environment. Modern life completely overrides our internal cues. We are constantly inundated with external triggers. Think about it. We eat while watching TV, driving, working at our desks. This distracted eating, combined with those massively oversized portions you get in restaurants, creates a huge environmental mismatch. And I really want to validate your struggle here. If you find it hard to stop eating, it is often not a lack of willpower. Truly, it's a fundamental disconnection from your body's internal signals caused by a modern environment that pushes you to eat based on what's going on around you rather than what's inside you. Which leads me to ask you this absolutely crucial question. Before you reach for your next meal or snack, is your hunger actually physical? Take a second to really think about that. I mean, how often do you eat just because the clock says it's noon or, I don't know, because someone brought donuts to the office break room? To answer that, we need to understand the three distinct types of hunger. First, physical hunger. This is biological. It's that ghrelin engine firing up. You actually feel your stomach rumbling. Maybe you get a little lightheaded or start losing focus. Then there's environmental or mental hunger. This one is triggered purely by the sight or smell of food, or maybe a social celebration. Finally, we've got emotional hunger. eating in response to stress, loneliness, anger, or, let's be real, even just boredom. But here is the critical takeaway. If your hunger is mental or emotional, no amount of food is ever going to physically satisfy it. You're basically trying to solve a psychological trigger with a physiological input. And that right there is a major driver of overeating. All right, moving on to section 4, the power of fidgeting. Now, what's really interesting here is a highly surprising, even kind of counterintuitive habit that researchers have found clearly separates the lean from the obese. This is something those naturally thin people are doing without even realizing it. And it all comes down to a single number, 350. So what do you think this represents? Well, this is the average number of extra calories burned per day by people who possess one very specific behavioral trait. And that trait is fidgeting. Scientifically, this is known as NEAT, or non-exercise activity thermogenesis. Basically, it's the energy you expend doing everything that isn't sleeping, eating, or sports like exercise. We're talking about bouncing your leg, tapping your foot, shifting around in your chair, or pacing while you're on a phone call. It might seem like just an annoying habit, but burning an extra 350 calories a day through spontaneous, restless movement, that translates to burning off 10 to 30 pounds a year without ever stepping foot inside a gym. No way, right? But it's true. Naturally thin people just have a really high propensity for NEAT. Now for our final section, section 5, relearning how to eat. So, we know the biology of our hormones, we know how external cues hijack them, and we know about the absolute magic of NEAT. Bringing all this science together means deliberately relearning how to eat. We have to tune back into our internal cues. And it all starts with the intuitive eating scale. Think of it like a mental screenshot. It ranges from 0, which is that extreme, ravenous, shaking hunger, all the way up to 10, which is overly, uncomfortably stuffed. The goal of relearning to eat is to listen to your internal signals. So you start eating when you're at about a 3, moderately hungry but not starving, and you consciously stop eating at a 6 or 7, comfortably full and satisfied but not stuffed. Naturally thin people just naturally navigate between a 3 and a 7. They don't let themselves drop to a 0 because that triggers a binge, and they definitely don't push themselves to a 10. To hit that 3 to 7 sweet spot, you can use this super practical 3-step relearning process. Step 1. Pay attention to eating and completely remove distractions. Turn off the TV, put away the phone. Seriously, you cannot hear your body's subtle signals if your brain is constantly multitasking. Step 2. Identify physical hunger signals before eating. Ask yourself, am I actually at a 3 on the scale? Is my stomach genuinely rumbling? And step 3, identify sensations of fullness by eating slowly. Just try putting your fork down between bites. Remember, it takes actual time for that leptin signal to travel from your fat cells to your brain to apply the satiety brake. You've got to give your biology the time it needs to work. Beyond the eating scale, here are just a few extra lifestyle habits we see in the naturally thin that you can easily adopt. First, bump up that lean protein. Protein keeps you satiated way longer and helps build muscle, which actually boosts your metabolic rate. Second, don't drink your calories. Sugary drinks, sodas, those heavy coffees, they don't trigger satiety the way real food does, they just add empty energy. Third, get enough sleep. Lack of sleep causes your body to release cortisol, a stress hormone that literally signals hunger and makes weight loss incredibly difficult. And finally, if you do overindulge, hey, maybe at a Sunday dinner or a holiday party, don't panic. Naturally thin people just naturally eat skinnier later. They balance out a heavy meal by eating lighter, leaner meals over the next day or two. It's all about balance. So the absolutely crucial point here is that being naturally thin isn't magic. It's a biological dialogue that you can learn to speak. Which brings us right back to our starting thought. Which of your body's internal cues have you been ignoring lately? Is it that quiet leptin break telling you you're full, or maybe a lack of daily fidgeting? I challenge you to tune into your biology at your very next meal. Start at a 3, stop at a 7, and see how you can astound yourself today. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep learning.